Welcome to Berlin, Germany, home of the 2019 LEC Spring Split. Tonight, we close out the first round robin with some explosive matchups, starting with Fnatic looking to bounce back against a surging Splice. We'll see whether or not Splice can step up to the challenge and continue winning some games, or Fnatic turn it around. I'm Trevor Quickshow Henry, joined here at the Announce Area by Indiana Frosco and Black, and our secret agent, returning from North America, it's Christiane Frierson.
Wait, I got this.
Oh, thank you. See, it wouldn't be an intro with me and if there wasn't a hype joke involved, but I'm so glad to be back, Trevor, because, you know, I was in NA for a few weeks and they were sort of like keeping me hostage in the basement there, right? It wasn't good.
Is that when you did those interviews?
Yeah, I did.
Without the prisoners and things,
yeah,
right?
honestly, if I was there for a few more weeks, I would have done another one with probably a colleague, because she was, you know,
put down
in the basement.
We're going to talk about that a little bit, and in case you weren't able to keep up, and G2 are the new hotness here in Europe, out with Fnatic, who are letting the European side down. G2 are undefeated at 8-0. They're just dominating the opposition.
And the real talking point is how meaty that middle of the pack is, between Vitality to about Origin. This is a contest because third place is up for grabs.
Yeah, and it's this middle of the pack looks very good, I think, because it's not like these teams are, you know, crushing the opposition, but they're winning the early games consistently. I think they have really good junglers in these three teams. It's the mid game, and once we get around that Baron, that if they tidy up, they're going to be able to start contesting with the top.
Origin go 2-0 last week. Splice took down Misfits in a nail biter. We're starting to see this potential of Origin. Frost, are you buying into the hype?
I'm not ready to buy my tickets on the Origin hype train just yet. They need to be a bit more consistent here, but we are seeing good executed strategy. Same thing with Splice. It's just a matter of, can we see the good things repeatedly? Because then I'm all aboard to ride them into playoffs.
We'll have to see whether or not they can step up. Of course, going into this week, we are seeing teams further down the standings taking action. There are changes coming. Rogue, XL Esports, and SK Gaming are all making changes either to their rosters or their coaching staff. Rogue have brought in Finn and Vander. They have replaced Profit and Wadid. Frost, what do you make of the change? Of course, this is a team that's 0-8. I mean, they needed to do something, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Something has to change. They have an effective 10-man roster. It makes sense that they would kind of grab for this to see if maybe they can mix up the formula and start putting wins together. That said, I don't necessarily know if I agree with the changes. You have established talent in Wadid and Profit. You change it out for a veteran in Vander, but a complete rookie in Finn. And I did check in on him in the Polish League. Some of it looks impressive, but comparatively to Profit, who is now just smurfing in the Polish League, I'm like, I don't think Finn had much competition down there.
Well, we're going to have to find out if he can actually bring some of the wins that his Polish League team has to this stage. Some of the other changes really quickly. XL Esports, they've brought in Special in the mid lane in place of Exile. SK have also confirmed that their head coach is now Broken Shard in place of Sheepy. This week will be played on patch 9.3. The hotfix will be applied. That means we will not be seeing the Frost Mancy strategy that we saw over in the LCK and the LCS.
Woo!
Ender, you're our resident gaming expert from the QA team. So support item changes, ADC item changes, talk me through it.
Well, quickly on that kleptomancy point, I think it is important that while we're not going to see the strategy done in solo lanes, the changes made it so that you wouldn't be able to get the stacks on the Frostfang while you're by yourself. If you're next to an ally, you're still going to get it, so we might see an AD carry like Ezreal still pick up that item.
Did happen to see that one in the LCK with the Ezreal Galio. We'll see if it pops up. That said, huge item changes for all of the crit ADC. So while Ezreal and Lucian are still high priority, this means champions like the Sivir, like the Caitlyn, now can find themselves pretty comfortable in the rotation because you can item IH first.
Exactly, and I think the biggest change with the AD carry items isn't actually that ADCs are all the way back or they're insanely better. It's really the point between your first item and your third item that got a lot nicer. On 9.2, you sort of got Stormrazor, and then we're waiting until you completed a Zeal item and Infinity Edge, and until you got that third item, you felt really bad. But now, once you get that Infinity Edge, as soon as you start getting Zeal items on top of that, you make use of that bonus crit damage passive, and it feels so good, making a very smooth curve.
I get that. It's smoothed out the gradient, so you don't need multiple, multiplicative additives coming into this one. We've also got a column here that's nerfed Akali. I mean, Ender, you said she's in the dumpster. I mean, is it that bad?
It's pretty bad, Trevor. It's pretty bad. I think her win rate in solo queue went down by like 6% or something. Losing the healing made her much more exploitable in the laning phase, which is supposed to be her weakness, and now it's actually there, so she can't get to that level where she can just roll you over.
I'm a bit more glass half full on the Akali. I don't think that she's going to be as high a priority in the draft, but that said, we still have a guy named Caps in our league. He's still an Akali god, and if the counter pick is available, I think you can see him grab it and be just as devastating on the champion.
Okay, so let me say the captain obvious thing. Schalke upset, happy. Fnatic reckless, happy. Is anybody hurt by this? Is anybody even more helped?
I mean, the thing is, I'm glad that you grabbed Fnatic, because that's really who I want to hone in on. Reckless has been trying to find these crit ADCs, and this was a massive bone to throw to Fnatic, because now some of their drafts may actually be viable on the 9.3 meta. That said, globally, we actually haven't seen a lot of change. It's still playing very fast. It's still playing very aggressive.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, I think, here, is that even though there are big sweeping changes, it doesn't actually affect the game state all that much. Okay. I don't think it's not going to hurt any teams in particular, because even though a few champions got removed, there's still a lot more underneath that now they have the option to go for.
So you're saying there's different recipes, different options, different ingredients that are in the mix. And for more information on how you guys at home could maybe cook up the perfect draft on this new patch, I've invited a friendly face from the valleys in Wales to provide some successful recipes.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my kitchen. I am Chef, yes, and today we're going to be cooking up some new drafts as we begin play on the patch of 9.3. Now, as you know, some of the champions have gone out of season right now, so we've got to remove them from our ingredients list. First off, we'll start with Irelia. This champ, rubbish. You don't want her in your drafts anymore. If you need something that can pack more of a punch, she's not it. She's gone. Now, Akali, no. You don't want to be drafting her anymore. Her laning is atrocious. Gone. Useless. Right, let's not talk too long about the old lad Aatrox, right? He's been in too many drafts for too long. Gone, right? And I mean, no one played this in Europe anyway, but just in case, in the rubbish. Right then, lovely jubbly. Now that we've gone to the bad ingredients, let's look at some of the great new flavors that you want to be bringing to your recipe book. Now, in order to look at some of these great new ingredients, we got to get our special tool out, and we look at, oh, look at this, nice and fresh, juicy in it. You know, he's looking great, he's looking fancy. We're going to put him right in the pot. Speaking of mid laners, we got to talk about some Whiskey Delta, and obviously that means our boy Corky. Put him in there with the special recipe tool, chuck him in the pan. Make sure you mix them up nice and good, get them in your drafts. On top of this, you're going to want to liven things up down in the bot lane with them lovely crit AD carries. They're top quality now. Get them in there with the Lucians and the Ezreals. You get that special Infinity Edge tool, and you mix it in with some of them tasty spices. Now, I did prepare some examples earlier. Have a look at them. I put them in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes, and you can see proper bangers in it, like proper lovely. Those are great. Now, top lane, you will see some crazy stuff. If you're feeling adventurous, try out some Yorick. Also, you can give some Kennen a go to give your dishes that really electrifying feel. However, to truly enrich your drafts, you're going to need a very special ingredient. And it is very, very important. No good draft comes without it. So I'm going to get my special bowl up. Right? Here we are, and you want to make sure that you lather everything in with some ergot, right? Don't worry about how much you use. Don't worry about it. You can never have too much of it, right? Just get it in there. Get him in. Perfect way to give that draft that top quality feeling. Right now, we're probably going to be seeing a bunch of new ingredients over the next few weeks, so let's send it back over to the analyst zone to cover some more.
Okay, I cut out about 200 ergots, and that's how they were used.
Wait, no, you are lying. I cut out the ergots last night. You were not there. You were not there.
Are you going to make this about yourselves?
Yes.
You have just been taught some of the best cooking advice you are ever going to learn, and now I understand. Not only am I terrible in the kitchen, and I'm terrible at League, it's because I don't understand the recipes. It's just this epiphany.
Just ergot. That's all you need.
Just add the ergot. Anyways, listen, we'll be on the lookout for some of the tasty drafts later tonight as we kick off week 5 of the LEC Spring Split with Fnatic taking on Splice. Ender, you're back. First day back here in Europe. What game are you most excited to watch today?
One answer. No.
Nope. Down. Oh, sorry. I got this. We did this earlier. Misfits G2. That's the one. They're good teams.
Tell me why. Come on, stakes.
Stakes? Well, G2 have like all the best players, and then Misfits have a really good strategy that they only sometimes do. But when they play on bot lane, it's good.
So what you're saying is Misfits have a shot to beat G2. I have predictions queued up. Let's throw them up in a second, because I think I'm the only spicy member that is feeling
Misfits?
an upset today. I did, because the rest of us are pretty aligned. Frosk, you've gone Fnatic over Splice.
Okay.
That's more controversial than mine.
Euphoria made me int a couple of times in the predictions. I had to run it down. StatSpots, I knew that they were going to predict Splice, and I'm trying to catch on StatSpots. So I had to go the other end. I have to predict Fnatic. 9.3 crit ADCs. Come on, throwing a bone.
I know. That's why Hans Summer's going to help take down Perks in the bottom lanes there. Why Misfits are going to win.
You're actually running it down.
Well, we'll find out. I need to give some credit out there, by the way, because all of the fans at home on Twitter, the fan vote is currently leading, beating all of us and StatSpot by 2 points.
Give it time.
Get some Dracos love in there.
We'll see. We'll. He's not on the board. He doesn't count for now. Tonight's epic showdown, G2 versus Misfits. This is the match of the week. And while I will give Dracos a little bit of love now, Frosk, he and Vedius have created something extremely unique. It's the very first ever mediocre rap battle of the LEC. Now, I do have a very important question for everybody watching at home. Who wins the rap battle? While you're watching the video, spam in chat Dracos or Vedius, depending on who you think wins. This will be while the video is running. Jump into YouTube or Twitch. Let's roll a clip.
Now time to send it back over to Shox in the analyst desk to tell us just how no team in this league can take down G2.
No team? I mean, they're going up against Misfits, dude. I'm pretty sure that they're going to lose this week.
Are you serious? They're terrible.
G2's good, but can they really compete against the Misfits bot lane?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first ever mediocre rap battles of the LEC, featuring Misfits and G2. Without further ado, let the battle begin!
Your dynasty was over years ago. Get over it. Just let it go. Cause it's time for a new king, new bling. It's time for a new way of doing things. Try coming at the Misfits. We chillin'. LEC's anime and you are my villains. Which for the record, if you're on a weeb, means you can talk tough, start shit, make us bleed. But at the end of the day, we aren't here to play. We're the hero and you're in our way. We got stack talent, the UK's best, that French finesse, import support. So come with me, boy, not gonna lie. Who really gives a fuck about a Spanish samurai?
Excuse me? Who are you? Must be someone special coming after G2. Aren't you that Misfits team, the one who couldn't make playoffs in 2018 spring? Well, we're the ones that killed RNG. Best in China made them look free, no time to rest on the laurels. Let the fans adore us, hate or abhor us, cause it's 2019 and it's time to flex. Bob, Mickey, X, and Cap's gonna break them necks. Every pick is a flex pick, every matchup a 1-1. Stop trying to step up, you already done, son. Tell me, have you ever seen an EU roster this stacked? Every player solo killing, tell me how you beat that! Tell me how you beat that!
Hey, what's up, you stupid samurai? When was the last time you won a crown?
Tell me how you beat that!
Beating you is easy, your boys are stupid and greedy. Every game you keep on inting, rely on caps to keep winning. But we're gonna take him out, have a doubt, Febby showing up, killed him in lane, such a shame, Goldie going up. I don't wanna hear about Perks, he don't matter to me. Send him up against Hans, give him that easy Yo3. Cause we don't give a damn about a second-rate bot laner. Run back to your broken kingdom, can't handle the pressure.
So little samurai keeps swinging that blade, only way you beat this Robin with a holy grenade.
For a team whose greatest achievement is losing to SKT, you sure are cocky. Just so I understand. Kings don't die for this, mindless bot lane and a Draven one trick, and he left prey to become prey. All you really ever done is throw money away, cause you make it easy to dissect your habits. Rising up quick when we killing these rabbits, swapped out PoE for a POS, and it really doesn't seem like you learned from this. Cause in caps like Febby, what do you do? Another mediocre misfit can't be true, just blame it on the NA solo queue. Just another chance that Misfits blew, but maybe the Moose has got a soft spot for mid lane. Maybe there's something wrong in his big moose brain. So many damn animals on this Misfits team. G2 about to turn your zoo into a crime scene.
You know, I have to give it to Vedius. This is much closer than I thought it was going to be.
We don't know how many accounts Vedius is logged into right now because Draco slammed that.
Absolutely fantastic. You guys at home have voted on who won the rap battle, and it's clearly Dracos and G2 Esports. Look, we're expecting a lot of action tonight. It is our match of the week. It is game 5 of the day. Set your alarms. You're also able to get a closer look at that bottom lane with the POV stream. We'll be featuring perks over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2. Look, the LCS LEC finals are coming. We're nearly halfway through the split. We're going to the Ahoy Arena in Rotterdam on the 13th and 14th of April. Who knows? You'll maybe see Misfits. You're pretty sure to see G2. We'll see if they can make it there. Tickets, pre-sales will start next week, the 22nd of February. That's at 4 p.m. Central European time. For info, visit eu.llesports.com/Rotterdam, and you will see these two there as well. The action isn't just heating up here in the LEC. Our European regional leagues are now operating in full swing. The teams are fighting for seats to compete in the 3rd European Masters. That will be starting on the 8th of April. Each of our LEC teams also has an academy team competing in their home region. So we're going to check in a few of them very quickly, starting with Rogue Esports Club. They are currently undefeated in Ultra League of Poland with a current score of 8-0. G2 Heretics tied for first with Mad Lions in Superliga Spain. They're at 5-1. And SK Prime leads the pack alongside Euronics Gaming here in the Premier Tour, the official circuit for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. More information, check out our URLs, including where and when to watch. Go to eu.llesports.com/ERL2019. We are just minutes away from our first game of the day, where a Fnatic in crisis have their eyes set on a much-needed win against Splice. For more, let's hear from Law and Broxah.
Thank you very much, Trevor. I was joined by Broxah ahead of the first game of Week 5. Thank you for joining me. I'll dive directly into the subject. You guys are 2-6 currently in the standings. The first round robin ends tonight, and historically, Fnatic never missed playoffs. Now, we have a tough schedule ahead, but everything is possible. So how do you feel about playoffs so far?
I would lie if I said I wasn't just a little bit stressed about playoffs. Obviously, we're in a really bad spot right now, and we need to get a lot of wins in order to actually make it. So it's a tiny bit stressful. I'm still confident that we can make it, but we do have a tough road ahead of us. But with that said, I still think we can make it. We just need to really start stepping it up now. We can't really afford dropping games, especially to the bottom teams anymore. We really need to get some wins. So I'm hoping that this week we can actually get a 2-0 and start getting on the right track.
How do you guys keep your head straight besides all the lose? I mean, we didn't have time to talk yet, so I'm asking now.
Well, I think the most important thing for us was to try to get sort of a mental reset after what happened, because coming into this year we had such high hopes and we really thought we were going to get a better start than this. So like one of the things we've implemented is having a sports psychologist now that's helping us out, helping look at our routines, our schedule, and see what we can improve in that regard, and just generally trying to be a little less stressed and feeling a little less pressured than we used to, because in the beginning it was really difficult to handle the losses, and it's going to be the same going forward. So we just need to try to chill and rest a bit, and then I think we'll be fine.
And have a good mental state. I get you. One thing good coming for you is the new patch, because everybody says that it's a patch for Fnatic, and with the way you guys have been drafting recently, this patch could fit way more to your drafting style. Do you agree?
Well, I think that our previous drafts were a big problem. Even in the new meta, I think we had way too much late game, and we would often have 3 lanes getting pushed, sometimes even with a sack or something similar, like a losing jungle. And I think that's a big problem, regardless of what patch you play in. So that's definitely something we've had to work out and actually have better drafts. But generally, obviously, with Reckless on the team, a crit meta is always nice. He's known to be a really good crit player, so I definitely don't mind seeing some crit buffs.
And I think the first game today will be a good start for you. I mean, you will be facing Splice. They usually play for the early game, but not through the early game. They usually win through late game. So how do you beat them today?
Well, I think Splice's style is pretty interesting for us, because they play pretty similar to what our style has been so far. And I think generally our main issue has been losing in early game. I think all games other than the XL one, we've gotten destroyed in early game. And if we can actually have a stable early game against a team that's supposedly is weak early game and just get to the mid game, get to the late game, then I think we're going to be stronger than most teams in the league. We just really need to fix our early game. So stylistically, matching up against Splice, I think we should be in a good position.
This will be an interesting match to see for sure. Thank you very much for joining me and good luck on this one. Now back to you guys in the studio.
You know, I think listening to Broxah there will give a lot of Fnatic fans hope because he really does sound like he's identified the problems within the team. They're turning their heads around with sports psychologists. It sounds like there's a lot of good things that have gone into this week, and we should be seeing it pay off.
I mean, there's one thing noticing it, being aware of it. It's a whole other putting it together, right? So that's what I want to look at. Just quickly as an update, Fnatic as an organization, they've never missed playoffs, ever. And with their current record of 2 wins and 6 losses, they are at risk of not making top 6 for the first time in the organization's history. In the past here in Europe, teams that were able to pick up 9 wins could at least get themselves a tiebreaker for a playoff berth. So what does that mean? Frost, when I turn to you, Fnatic, 2 wins, 6 losses. We see the strength of schedule up on the screen. How does Fnatic get to the magic number 9?
Basically, what you guys are looking at is how Fnatic find that magic number and where they need to pick up the wins. Like Broxah said, we expect them to take down the bottom 3 teams, which are Excel, SK, and Rogue, not counting Fnatic in the standings right there. Yeah. So we gave them those wins. Origin is up next in terms of the standings, so you give them that win. The big scary thing, though, is today's match. Why it's so important? Because they would have to beat Splice twice.
And I guess when you say give, sorry, just to clarify, of course, this is the remaining games. This is just for Fnatic to get to 8 wins. Yep. Right? If I do the math here, I mean, Ender, that is a tough task.
Yeah, it's certainly difficult. Not to mention, if they lose today's game against Splice, that means that they need to beat two of these 4 top teams, which is really, really tough.
And that's assuming you auto lose to G2, right? So it's really difficult. So how did this team win? How does this team get to 9? The only time we've seen any team make playoffs with 8 wins was H2K and Rocket last spring, one of the craziest splits we've ever had. So how does Fnatic avoid that?
It means that then you have to find that final win against one of the top teams. As we said, G2's not pictured here because we expect that no one's going to beat them. At this rate, they're looking for the perfect split. So that means you must take a win off of either Misfits, Vitality, or Schalke. And again, if you lose to Splice and you're not able to beat them both times, or maybe you drop a game with Rogue, suddenly you need to beat 2 of these teams instead of just 1.
Right. I think I understand the mechanics. I think I understand the math before how Fnatic get there. Let's talk specific gameplay now. What is the team? What do the players need to adapt? How do they adjust? We've heard a lot of talk about their draft. Broxah was very critical of it. So Frost, let's start with how do they fix their draft?
First and foremost, you can't be scaling late like this. I think that if you take these drafts and you put them on the 9.3 meta, they're actually acceptable. I like the fact that when they're using Lee Sin and Syndra, you know, you have early game playmaking potential right there. You can rock into the jungle at level 6, level 9 for Syndra as well, and then just start blowing up anyone. But you can't just be relying on Reckless to hard carry you through the early, or to hard carry you until late game. You must have some sort of option early.
Yeah, and I think it is important too. We heard Broxah speaking about losing jungle matchups. Like drafting Zac and Castan at the same time seems very questionable, even in the new meta, in his words. So I would like to see them get more into the picks like the Lee Sin with strong mid laners behind it.
But again, I just have to emphasize this. On 9.3, I think you can actually be acceptable with a lot of these drafts. So this actually should be a huge point for Fnatic fans that looking at this screen, if it's on 9.3, you're almost okay with this.
Okay, so this is great. We've got the Fnatic perspective, we've got the Fnatic story. There's somebody standing in their way. The favorite in this matchup, a team that's historically this year been better than Fnatic, it's Splice. Now, Splice, I think Law had a fantastic line. They play through the early game, but not to win through it, right? What was the wording? Something like that?
Yeah, it's the idea that Splice aren't just a late game team because they have to be. If you look at their draft, they also have options to play through the early game. It just hasn't been as consistent as it needs to be. And it's about that reliability that once you get to 35 minutes, that Splice are comfortable there.
Yeah, and I think for the early game, it's so important to highlight Xerxes because this is a player that is constantly making plays and building an advantage for his team. And it allows them to sort of sit at this point where they're comfortable, right? They've gotten a lead early on, and they can play a little bit slower up until Baron becomes a better possibility. They can look for that capital team fight at the end to finish it off.
But then why does my play-by-play brain keep going, they only win late? Like, Splice games are always long. You know, it is something that we've had to refine how we talk about it. I mean, Frost, let me start with you. What is it about Splice that makes so many of their games go longer?
This is a bit of an abstract concept to really understand, but Splice are a very good set playbook team. They understand the fundamentals of League of Legends very well, probably better than most teams in terms of when you look at things like their Baron vision, their team fight setup.
Okay.
When they reset the map, they go to spawn and they say, okay, next is mid tower, next is Baron, next is this team fight. Where problems start to occur for Splyce is when they have to adapt on these set plays. When you stall them out on a map, like what Misfits did to them, suddenly Splyce are like, we need the Baron, we have to do the Baron. Their setup was fine, but Misfits said, no, we're going to throw an option, a wrench into your plans, and you must play reactive, creative League of Legends. And that's where Splyce fall down. The longer you hold them on the map, they have to go back and kind of rely on these clutch team fight wins, which they can be comfortable there, but it's not consistent wins each time.
Yeah, and that's the difference between being a middle to higher end of the pack team and being a team contesting for top 1, top 2. And that's where we sort of find Splyce at the moment, where they need to be able to react to these sorts of plays that are being thrown their way by teams like Misfits. Otherwise, they're just going to stagnate here.
A word that I really want to apply to it is creativity. I want to see Splyce be more creative when they set up their plays or their macro formations on the map. When you watch a team like G2, like Misfits, because they have so many superstars that can each kind of win a game for themselves, it just takes one Caps to be creative about how he sets up a play, where he finds a pick that G2 and Misfits can then capitalize on, where Splyce don't have that yet.
Okay, so the question is now, just really quickly, is we've got both teams understood. We've looked at them individually. How do they match up now, Ender? Like, how do you see Splyce's style? Because it sounds and feels to me like this could benefit Fnatic. You know, if Splyce are not creative, if Fnatic use their veterancy and their experience to survive the standard playbook, then it comes down to individual skill or maybe a team fight like we saw in the Misfits game.
I think it does benefit Fnatic slightly more than it does Splyce, in the sense that I feel like Splyce are much more happy to play these sort of playmaking champions in the mid lane, like the Aatrox or the Akali perhaps. Whereas Fnatic, I didn't get that same sort of vibe. I think they're happier to push it past the 25-30 minute mark, maybe look for a first or second Baron fight later into the game, and that's where we can see them utilize Reckless on 3-item AD carries to try and combat that of Kobbe in those team fights.
See, this is also why I lean towards Fnatic, because assuming that Splyce and Fnatic are going to show us the exact same thing, so this is assuming that there's no development, that Splyce didn't get that creativity, that Fnatic haven't learned how to play an early game, and that we both hit at like 30 to 35 minutes, I have to lean towards Fnatic veteranship. Splyce took that game over Misfits by like a 50-50 coin flip. It could have very easily gone the other way, and Misfits is a team that hadn't shown us a late game. We know that Fnatic are still very strong, very intelligent late game team fighters, so even though stylistically Splyce like to be there, I have to err on the side of Fnatic.
Okay, and of course that is why you voted for Fnatic this game. Ender, you've sit on the side of Splyce, where I'm sitting as well. Let's talk specifically which player, which pick do you anticipate to be the most pivotal, as we're just a couple minutes away from picks and bans?
Ooh, which pick gets a little bit tricky, but I have my eyes set on Xerxes, because I think that he is going to be able to impact the early game more than perhaps Broxah will on his side. Now, we know that Xerxes has been a fan of picks like Zac in the past. He's not limited to that, though. He's also played things like the Karthus as well, which give Splyce a more inherent scaling advantage. I think Broxah would look for a Lee Sin. That's a strong champion on this patch for him, but Xerxes will be able to both impact the early game and also scale into being a stronger team fighter later on.
I agree. I had some questions about Splyce. I was like, is Humanoid going to be the X factor that takes Splyce from being a 4th place team to a title contender? And I don't think it's Humanoid. I think he helps, but I do think it is Xerxes. He's really flown under the radar as one of our stronger, more creative junglers that has such a deep versatility to play those late game scaling like Karthus, as well as early playmakers.
Frosk, we have just a minute left, and I need to ask about Kobbe. It is the man of Splyce. It is the franchise player that has been with this roster for the longest time, and he is one of the guys that really does not get a lot of airtime. He is reliable. He is consistent. Is he going to stop your Fnatic prediction today?
I mean, unfortunately, I still erred on the side of Fnatic because it's Reckless on crit ADCs versus Kobbe, and historically, you should always favor Reckless right there. That said, in current form, Splyce should be heavy favorites. This is like my last chance for Fnatic. If they lose here, I'll never vote for them again.
Oh my word, that's very bold. Very last thoughts, just on Kobbe specifically. It is a man that tends to get overlooked a little because there's a lot more other topics about Splyce to talk about. So in ADC, on the crit meta, is Kobbe going to outperform Reckless?
I think he will outperform Reckless, and here's where you're going to hate me for saying this. I don't think it's going to be necessarily just because of him. I think that Splyce is a smarter team-fighting team than Fnatic, and they will set him up more for success because AD carries do the damage in team fights, but it's your team and your setup that is actually how you win.
Okay, well, we'll have to see with the casters and exactly how Splyce handle. It's time to get started with today's matches as Fnatic and Splyce hit the rift.
Roses are red, violets are blue. You better be ready. Medi's coming for you. Let's go.
Woo, ladies and gentlemen.
Happy Valentine's Day. One day belated to everyone out there. Vedi, yes, I didn't ask you this yesterday, but will you be my Valentine?
Of course, my friend. How could I not?
Kiss me, Vedi.
No.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Fnatic up against Splyce is our first game of the day, and what a day it's going to be. We talked a lot on the